Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and the most merciful. Guys, now I'm going to explain you a different question. The question is the same, that you have to find the domain. The question is find the domain of fx, which is equal to sine inverse x divided by x. Okay, we have to find the domain of this given function, right? As you can see here, I told you in my previous lecture about a composite function, right? Here you can say this is a composite function, right? Here we have two functions which is written in rational form, okay? The one is sine inverse x and the second one is x, linear functions, okay? We can say fx is gx is this one, hx is this one. We have two functions, this one and this one. So whenever you have a composite function, whenever you see two functions in a function, right? Okay, and you have to find the domain, you have to find the domain individually, right? Individually you have to find the domain of this one and the domain of this one, right? Okay, two different domain of two different functions, and then take the common part, okay, the intersection part. Okay, so once you got the common intersection point, means the common point, and after then you have to check that is there any value of x if I plug in the denominator and the function does not exist, so remove that value from the domain, right? So the other remaining values of x will be the domain of a given function. Okay, so as you can see here, we have one function sine inverse x and we have one function linear function. Okay, so we will find the domain of this one and this one, then we will find the common part, right? Once we have a common part, okay, the intersection part, we will see is there any value of x in a common part. If I plug in here, the function does not exist, so we will just remove that that part of a domain, right? Okay, I'm going to solve this question. You can see. So if I say about the domain of sine inverse x, okay, so the domain of sine inverse x. What is the domain of sine inverse x? From -1 to 1, right? We can say, you can say from -1 to 1. Okay. You can say this is -1, this is 1. Okay, so we will take all the values from -1 to 1, included with -1 and 1, right? And 0 is always a line between -1 to 1. Okay. So this is the domain of sine x. Okay, what about x? The domain of x, this is linear, so you can say the domain of x is a real number r, right? Real number. Okay, so what is the common part? You can say the common domain now. Okay, the common domain, find out the common domain. So common domain, right? Common domain means the intersection domain of sine inverse x and x. Okay, so as you can see, this is a real number. Okay, means according to real number you can take any values from -infinity to positive infinity. From -infinity to positive infinity, it has -1 to 1, right? So the common domain is -1 to 1, right? So you can say from -1 to 1, and I'm going to use the close bracket. Okay, if I say -1 to 1 is the domain of sine inverse x, as well as -1 to 1 is the domain of x, right? Okay, so these are the conditions for a composite function. But listen, from -1 to 1 we have 0. This is very important. So whenever you have a composite function, especially if this is a rational function, right? So check from -1 to 1, is there any value of x from -1 to 1? If I plug in the function and the function does not exist, yeah, we have. What is that? We have 0 here. Okay, we have 0 here, because 0 always come from -1 to 1. So if I take the 0 and just plug in here, we will say that fx does not exist. Why? Because fx is equal to sine inverse 0 divided by 0, and the function does not exist. So I'm not going to take 0 here. So don't take 0. So don't include 0, right? So the domain of the given function the domain is from where to where? We will say from -1 to 0, but I'm going to include -1, but I'm not going to include 0, so I'm going to use the open bracket, right? So except 0, and this is union, and the same thing from 0, I'm not going to use this one, to 1, but I'm going to include 1. So all the values from -1 to 1 except 0. So this is the domain of this function. I hope you understand. Take care. Bye bye. Assalamu alaikum.